Good afternoon. It's Celeste of Astrology by Celeste here to have a cosmic conversation with Christina Caudill. Hey, Christina, I see you there. Yay! See you. Okay, did that work? Let me try again. Oh, there, it worked. Yay!
Hello. Hi, Celeste. So
Hi,
great to
Chris.
see you.
It's so great to see you as well. How are you today, Christina?
I'm good. I'm really
I'm
excited to be connecting with you.
Me too, and I'm glad we changed the topic at your suggestion. But I think we'll mix both of them in. But why don't you introduce yourself for people who are unfamiliar with you?
Sure, great. My name is Christina Caudill. I'm the astrologer behind Radiant Astrology and the Radiant Astrology podcast. I'm an evolutionary astrologer. I studied under Mark Jones, who is a psychosynthesis therapist and counseling orientated astrologer. And I also have a background in Jungian depth psychology, particularly Jungian dreams and dream work. And yeah, so that's kind of me in a nutshell.
I love it. And tell me your big three, if you don't
I,
mind.
of course, I'm a Capricorn Sun, Scorpio Moon, and Capricorn Rising, but don't let it scare you. I always like to tell people.
Strategic. Where is your? I want to know where your Uranus is, if you
Well,
don't
oh,
mind, and what it's
interesting.
doing.
Well, natally, I have Uranus in the 10th house. And it's essentially it's conjunct my moon, so I've got Uranus at 6 degrees Scorpio, Moon at 14 Scorpio, the North Node at 21 Scorpio, and Venus at 25 Scorpio, all in. But Venus is essentially in the 11th house, depending on the house system. But they're all up there, in bright and shining up there at the top of the chart.
Okay, so you are here to plumb the depths of our psyches, collectively and individually, as well as because I love how we were supposed to talk about the lunar nodes on angles. And then Christina's like, why don't we talk about the MAGA meltdown? I'm like, I am here for it. My Uranus is conjunct my IC. So that's what we're going to
Oh,
talk
I love
about
that.
today and how it relates to the astrology. Yeah.
Hmm.
And do you want me to give just a few highlights that I think and then we can riff on?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So I called Neptune in Aries pop the balloon because Neptune went it's so interesting how this I would personally call MAGA occult.
Yep.
How we went through this, and not every person who supports this man is part of that, but as we went through Pisces, there's all this opening towards spirituality with Neptune, the planet that rules it, being so comfortable. But it also, people can grab on to gurus and cult figures and all that sort of things. Believe in the pixie dust that's being sprinkled on them. But then when Neptune went into Aries, the balloon starts to pop, and then when Uranus went into Gemini, that's when all hell really broke loose.
Broke
So
loose.
yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to say. And I'm calling the mini grand trine between Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto in
Yeah.
Aquarius, the road to Damascus, where I wrote it down.
Ooh, I love that.
Uranus,
I think I saw.
yeah, Uranus and Gemini enters the stage and a wake up call that shatters preconceived notions. One's concept of the societal power dynamics is transformed and deception is washed away from one's eyes.
And you know what? The thing that made me think about this was because when we were having a conversation before, when we were on my podcast, and you had said to me, you're like, I really think people are going to be having their eyes, opened, this cult situation with MAGA, with Donald Trump. Now, this was what? This was several months ago. This was like the
Hmm.
beginning of the year, and I was like, because to me, I know that Neptune is, delusions and deceptions by its very nature. And going into Aries, one of the things is we can get deluded into, a crusade of some kind, going to war and being deluded in that sense. So I wasn't entirely sure, but I had a podcast episode just last week with our mutual friend Dabney Lawless, and she had found some interesting correlations to now that these times we're in with the Salem witch trials, the astrology of
Mhm.
that time, where Neptune was in Pisces, where people got all like, they started having all these this mass hysteria, and this distorted kind of toxic thinking around, their neighbors and people like that, like other people who are just normal, like healers or just, average people, whatever in the community. If somebody's cow got sick, suddenly they'd be like, this woman, looked at me sideways the other day and it was her fault,
Yeah.
and so, and that's kind of how the ball would get rolling. And then
Mm.
when Uranus was just getting into oh no, I'm sorry, Uranus had been in Gemini at that time. So there was all this chaos anyway. And even by the time of the Salem witch trials, there wasn't a complete consensus. There were a lot of people who were totally for it and there were people who were totally against it. So as when you think of Gemini being like the twins, right? Or even like there's two sides to a story, right? And Uranus comes in and shatters all that, like it isn't just black and white or right or wrong. There's like, so many people have different ideas, just like, and it also made me think of when Elon Musk just suddenly said, hey, let's have a third party, and that came just as Uranus was entering Gemini, like I think it
Yeah,
was like
well,
a
that
day
was the
before.
day Neptune stationed
And
retrograde.
such a, oh my
He
God.
put out he put out a poll to his Twitter followers or X or whatever. Should a question about it, and they said yes, and so he's like, "I'm going to start a third party."
And I just think that, and of course he's delusional because nobody was to follow him, right? I mean, people may want that, but I don't think he's the right person leading it. But that shattering of this whole, there's only two sides. You're either with us or you're
Hmm.
against us.
Hmm.
And so, but getting back to the Salem witch trials, what was really interesting was it was that time exactly when Neptune was entering Aries. That cycle was when people really started to wake up and realize, because what was happening was there was no stopping it. People, like even judges, their wives were suddenly being accused, like everybody's mother and daughter and sister was being accused. Didn't matter what side you were on, and if you really were against the witches, it wouldn't have to matter if they were related to you, right? In that sort of
Uh-huh.
logic. So that started, it was interesting because when I was looking at dates online and it was saying the tide turned in like 19 or 1697 or something like that, where that was when Neptune was going to Aries. And by the time the final witch trial happened, it was actually happening in England as well, Europe and everything. The final witch trial, or the final burning of a witch, was in 1702, and that was when Neptune was wrapping up its transit through Aries then. So that storyline at that time was very much the waking up, of like,
Mm.
my God, how can we delude ourselves? And, we can't delude ourselves any longer. And, this is the thing. I don't blame anyone for being a part of a cult because it's kind of like, a fish doesn't know it's wet, right? It's
Mhm.
like you're just in it. And a lot of times people think they're being protected and they just feed into these things, and who knows why they fall into it. But when you wake up and it's not a pleasant experience usually, then that usually is when, you have to grapple with this new reality. It's so interesting having these two together with Uranus and Gemini. That's shattering our paradigms of what the known, Gemini,
Yeah.
like what all of this information and all these things we've been told, right? Suddenly we're
Mhm.
realizing we thought it meant one thing, but now it means something else. And I mean, it's obvious that MAGA is a cult, and there's nothing against MAGA. I'm not saying that I think they're completely innocent. I'm just saying, a lot of times that
Well, people
it's
came
a
together
charismatic
for
character.
a
Yeah,
common belief system. And then Uranus went into Gemini, and their dear leader, they got this information that shattered their minds. And everyone's getting this Uranus and Gemini. Everyone's on a
and
road to
some, yes.
Damascus, having some kind of spiritual awakening in some way. But I think it's really interesting that Saturn and Neptune are conjunct at this time in Aries. And a great story that
Yeah.
really displays part of this waking up. So, some guy moved his family from the United States, his wife and three daughters, to Russia because he felt the United States was
Oh
too
my goodness.
woke. And he got fooled into they're putting him on the front lines. Is I'll just skip to the end of the story. He is going to be cannon fodder for this Ukraine
Oh
war.
God.
After he and they told him he was going to be doing something else, and then it's like, here's your uniform and here's your gun. Get to the front, or he's about to. So that's like his conceptions are being shattered. He's going through his own Uranus. I'd love to see his chart. Oh my God, yeah.
And you know what is also just really interesting is the fact that this is the hill MAGA wants to die on, of all the things, is this like hello, way going back. I mean, there's photos, like Polaroid photos that are like decaying that have like like Trump and Jeffrey Epstein together. Everybody knew this. I mean, someone said online,
Willfully
there's more. They have
blinded. Neptune
they
and
have more.
Pisces can be willful blindness. Like you
It's like
don't see what you don't want to see. But when it goes into Aries, the balloon pops, Aries rules sharp objects, and you can't help but see.
and the Neptune in Pisces for the longest time, it is this kind of even the sense of being powerless, feeling powerless, not getting a grip, and almost being in a being back in the womb, being comfortable with that, not again not realizing that you're headed. I think what my friend Shireen had said is like we're frogs in a pan, or in a
It
boiling
starts boiling.
pot that starts boiling. You're like, wait a second, what's happening here? I thought I was safe, and I thought I was like in the safe zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we have to talk about what has happened to the United States as well over the last 50 plus years, where there were all these. I mean, you used to be able to support a family on one income, have a house, have kids, work a 9 to 5 and be able to feed yourself and your family. These days, I mean, so many people
Yeah.
are having so much trouble just even keeping a roof over their head because wages have not gone up, but the
Crisis, huh? Yeah.
yeah, and the genius of what the president has done is he tricked his followers into believing it was the boogeyman was people of color or immigrants or whatever, rather than the people at the top hoarding unbelievable amounts of wealth. What the lowest person in a company paid and the CEO's salary has gone like so far in opposite direction. So desperate people do, you know, are desperate things. I mean, yeah.
And this another thing with Uranus in Gemini is Uranus can have this, it has a separating kind of effect. And
Mhm.
there's times where you can feel exiled and alone. And, so it's like I would imagine some of these people, if they're waking up and they're like, "Oh my God, this guy's a complete charlatan, or he's lied, or he's untrustworthy," finally thinking that, but yet they are too far gone to connect with the left. They're
Yeah.
just they still probably, because the things against the left have probably they've been fed since they were children. Some of these people are like
Hmm.
middle aged, right? A lot of
Hmm.
them are. So where do they go? And
Yeah.
who do they trust? And again, MAGA is not necessarily going to run to Elon Musk because he screwed that up already. So there may be this, for a while, the sense of alienation and what can come of
Mm.
that. Maybe
Very
they should stay out of
concerning.
politics.
Very concerning with
Yeah.
Saturn and Neptune and Aries, where people getting very mad, very angry, feeling lied to or violated, and where do they take their anger out on? People are having, there's a new term that maybe it's been here for a while, but I'm just starting to see it, where people crash out. And I'm calling that Uranus and Gemini. That's
I
Uranus and
used that
Gemini.
in my Uranus and Gemini. Yes, I absolutely did, because Uranus can very much have to do with our nervous system too. And in an air sign like Gemini in the mental realm, can start in the mental realm. And even Mark Jones had associated Uranus with trauma, because a lot of times with trauma, it starts in this like there's some break in your sense of reality, your sense of what, is known, or that what you know of the world, and that can be very very hard to process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Condoli. Yeah, Uranus definitely has associations with trauma. And so people crashing out, people like this is on the plane where somebody just starts taking off their clothes. I mean, and this started, this has been going on for a bit, but now that Uranus is in Gemini, I think we're going to be seeing it more and more and more where people just can't take the stress and just start
Right.
flipping out the stress of can I pay my bills, can I feed my kids, can I, and yeah, and it's with this big bill it's just going to get worse and worse and worse,
Oh
so
my
yeah.
goodness.
It's
Yeah.
wild. Yeah. And what about
Let's see.
what would you say about the nodes being in the north nodes in Pisces, the south nodes in Virgo, related to the timing of this crash out? Because right now, Venus is just finished squaring the nodes and Mars is on the south
Mhm.
node. So Venus and
Oh yes.
Gemini, uh, realizing the double
Interesting.
speak from, yeah, someone you
Oh,
thought
go
was
ahead.
an ally, maybe?
Yeah, well, the big news has been, this Mars coming up to the south node in Virgo, because Virgo being an earth sign. And the South Node, I like to think of it like in Vedic astrology, they consider, yeah, they're kind of like, they're both kind of malefics. I mean, in evolutionary astrology, we take a kind of a different view, but the South Node obviously has to do with the past. And, and it, when you look at a cobra and you see on its back, I learned this from Austin Coppock, it's got this design on it that looks like, that South Node symbol, right? And it's associated with poisons, and so it's kind of like purging the poisons, purging the toxins that have been buried beneath the earth, Virgo, and Mars is coming there to trigger it. So one of the things that really just made, just blew my mind, I said, oh my god, this is so Mars in the south node. It was back in 2021 when it was first discovered that there was in Ireland, there was this like nunnery, for women who had, basically had children out of wedlock. They were taken in by the Catholic nuns, and they discovered that they had buried there was like over 800
No, that just
corpses.
came out like last week, right?
Well, what happened just now is they're finally exhuming them, the body,
Oh, they're bringing them
because
up.
they are bringing them up literally from the ground. So it's bringing back all of, all the memories and all of the shame, and Virgo, that's very much like the nuns, the having to be, and the maiden, right? So it's almost just like this, they were trying to look so perfect for the patriarchy that they ended up doing something so horribly, evil, basically, to these poor
Oh my
children.
gosh.
Like not, and then also that distortion, there can be some distortions too with the nodes. That distortion of thinking we're purifying, we're being closer to God, when actually they were. not being,
Ah,
they were, and a lot of these bodies of these, children and babies were found, it was an unused sewer,
oh
and
my
so
God.
here we go back to, I'm sorry to get kind of dark. I probably should have had a little trigger warning there, but that's
Yeah.
so much the South Node. And so I think we all, on some level, are having to purge things from the past. And I'm like, Mars in Virgo wants to do it surgically, right?
Hmm.
Precisely. And it was interesting because this excavation, they have to be very, very careful. It's going to take them a long time because a lot of these bones have been decayed over the, decades.
Hmm.
And because it was like in the 60s, I think that is when this had happened initially, or maybe even older. But it was this very, very meticulous process, so we're going through this meticulous process of processing the past. And when we process emotions, like difficult emotions like shame or trauma, I mean, it's at first it's like this big jumble. That's usually why we don't want to deal with it, right? It's this big ball of, ball of wax, or this big
Hmm.
ball of yarn that just seems too big to digest, again, a Virgo concept. But when we digest it, it's about picking things apart and saying, like, oh no, it wasn't everyone who said I was, no good. It was just, my mother had a bad day and she, or, those kinds of things. And when you start to pick it apart and you start to analyze things, very, analytic Virgo, you can kind of get some space from it and it not just be this, big ball of trauma or emotion descending on you. And I think that that could be one potential for the South Node in Virgo. And then, the South Node in
That's
Virgo is,
brilliant. Yes, yes. Bringing up this stuff, but in order to heal it
right. And not
is an
just to delve
opportunity.
into the pain.
Yeah, there's an opportunity to recognize and heal.
Hmm.
Especially with Uranus and Gemini, it gives us a little detachment to see things from a different place without all of the emotion of giving words to the trauma. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the best things about Uranus is when it's like, I associate it with the phrase "I don't care," and that can have a lot of meanings, but it's the best part is not taking things personally, not investing too much of yourself and your emotions into things. Like you said, you could be objective about things to find a new solution. Uranus is the planet of novel solutions. And so we can really use it for that. I think like what you said about the crash out, which, as I
Hmm.
said, I thought was so funny. I used it myself in my blog when I wrote about it because had just to crash out just before the myself as it entered. I'll save you the details, but the Uranus, it can zap our nervous system. I can't tell you how many people I've or clients in the past who have had like a Uranus transit maybe to their north node or to something sensitive, who maybe had, like, for instance, a Kundalini awakening that went like totally haywire and it blew out their nervous system or something like that. And I think we could all easily do that when we're constantly online looking for answers and going down this rabbit hole and that rabbit hole and the, like we've got to lean into the nodes and take some space for our peace, for our well-being, for our mental health. And I actually think that it's fortunate on some level if we can see it in that way, if we can balance, the need to constantly be on top of the news. And the news that was here like a week ago, that's ancient history now.
I know,
That's
but
the
time is moving
past.
so fast. It's like, it's too much. It's too much for us. Yeah. So how do we use our spiritual tools to to give some peace of mind? How do you
Mhm.
like a peace of mind? What do I need to have peace of mind is a good question to ask
Mhm.
ourselves, whether it's breath
Yeah.
work or what have you. But when Uranus went over my Aries moon, I started having waking up having panic attacks in the middle of the night.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it was not good. Yeah, where I woke up and for no, like, well, my outer life seemed fine, but I think I had an intuition that something was going on in my work. And it turned out, like a month after this started, that they were closing the office I worked at and moving it across the country. They
Wow.
wanted me to move to the sticks of Pennsylvania. And I was like, no.
No.
This was back when I was in my corporate career. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I remember Uranus and Aries. I had it going over my IC
Yeah.
during that time, and I heard someone say, "Oh, that's the couch surfing transit," and I was like, "What? I'm not be couch surfing at my age. No way." Well, of course. I mean, I knew that we were moving. Like my husband and I, we had to lease a place, and it was wrapping up so that because he was going back to get his second master's, and but when we were going to move there, the place wouldn't be ready for several months. So we ended up having to stay with my parents and then with his parents and then finding a place. So we were kind of like couch surfing for the whole
Oh, that's
time that
a
Uranus was going under my IC. And I was like, "Arr, there's no getting away from it."
oh, I love that. I had not heard that before, that it was a couch surfing transit. That's a great handle.
Especially in
That's a
something like
great.
Aries, you have to
Mhm,
get moving when
mhm.
it's an Aries. But
Uh,
what's interesting is I want to make sure that I don't leave out the North Node because I know that when we talk about the South Node, everybody wants to know where are we heading. The North Node in Pisces, and just like you said, returning to the breath, returning to a sense of peace. And I was just listening to one of my favorite podcasts is Michael Singer, who wrote The Untethered Soul,
oh,
and
I
he
don't
does a
know.
great pod. Oh, he does a wonderful podcast.
Let me write it
Um,
down.
yeah, Michael Singer. His book that's famous is The Untethered Soul, but I really love his podcast and some of his other audiobooks and things as well. But he was saying that, we have such a greater consciousness than, say, for instance, like an amoeba, it's like a one cell. And that amoeba only reacts to, like, if you poke it, it'll just go away from you, so it's consciousness, but it only knows to respond and to react to its environment.
Hmm.
Whereas we have so much more, like brain power and things we can focus on and intellect and everything. But when we focus on something like, oh, that person said something to me the other day and I just can't stand them and they're just blah, 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 then we basically are acting like we have no greater brain than an amoeba, right? We're not using the capacity of our minds well enough, which could be, and basically he says, the human mind has like created amazing things, put man on the moon and is trying to cure cancer and the this and that and the other thing. Why do we use it for nonsense,
Hmm.
and it's just a reminder that, one of the things he always says is, who's in there? He was like, you're in there. You're not your parents, not Donald Trump, you know, not you're not your children, not anybody. You are in here. It's
Yes.
only you in there. And so what you choose to focus on, what you choose to put your focus and energy on, that becomes your entire world. And that we just have to remember to reclaim that during times when it feels like, we're about to crash out or things are spinning out of control.
Yeah, yeah. So when you feel the crash out coming, and it's coming for all of us in different ways, it's a good time to remember to, yeah, to what can you do to separate or what have you. Now, what do you think of like, uh, 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 so the schism of the MAGAverse? And one thing I've noticed, like Tucker Carlson went on this rant about, and I agreed with everything he said.
Oh yeah, I
I'm
know.
like, what is
That is just the
happening?
most bizarre thing.
Yeah, I was talking about the Pluto and Aquarius, how like the concentration of power to manipulate and control the people, and he just went on, and I was just like, oh my God, what is happening?
I'll give you one even more. Now this was already a couple weeks ago, but Marjorie Taylor Greene even was making some sense to me, and I was like, "What?" But then she went back to her old self. So thank God, because honestly, I was getting worried that I was agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Um, but you know what is so interesting is I saw a thing recently where it was like a call-in show, some clips from some call-in show of
Uh-huh.
MAGA, right? These people who are proud MAGA. It was on some MAGA, podcast or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were all saying, and it was why they were turning on Trump about the Epstein files. And they're like, he promised us, he said he was going to go in there and give that to us. Those were ours to have. And the way, and these were
Ah.
all grown men voices that sounded like their daddy didn't give them their, lollipop after, whatever. I mean,
Ah.
it's all emotional. It has actually, it was that they thought he was their guy. They thought he had brought them into his universe. He was going to
They
give
thought
them
they
this
were
gift.
family, Jupiter and Cancer. He was
Wow, that he's the daddy,
the
the
daddy. Well, they
daddy's
call
going
him
to.
daddy.
Oh
They
my
said
God,
stuff
yes,
about
right.
daddy's home when, and even I think the head of the UN called Trump daddy or something like that. It
What?
was so
Now I
bizarre.
kind of like that one.
It was so bizarre. Yeah, it was so weird. But
Well,
yeah, like it's
this
like
new moon in Leo opposite Pluto. You know, I'm thinking the moon opposite, or I mean, Pluto opposite the sun and all that stuff. That is going to be under some pressure. That's for sure.
yes, there's a new
Because,
moon at 2 degrees of Leo on Thursday, and it's opposite Pluto in Aquarius. So Leo can be the star of the show, the celebrity, the king, the royalty. Whose star is going to be dimmed? Is there going to be, like, it could be a literal death of someone, but
well,
there's also could be
just
figurative.
today was Ozzy
Ozzy
Osbourne.
Osbourne. Yeah, I
And
saw
he's a
that.
big star.
Yes,
Star of
yes.
generations.
Because the thing that happens, the sun moved into Leo, and because of the road to Damascus chart pattern, so the first thing it did was sextile Uranus, then trine Saturn Neptune, and um, then it opposes Pluto. So it's like, wow,
Wow.
it's like boom, boom, bang, bum, bum. Like there's so much going on. There's like a sudden shock, surprise, then ooh, a little coming to reality, a deception or illusion dissolving, uh, and then ooh, you're doing some subconscious work on your subconscious, like shadow work. Hmm.
Yeah, and isn't he, and I don't know too much about Ozzy Osbourne, but he was like the
Yeah.
Prince of Darkness or whatever. And now
Yeah.
you just
Black
see
Sabbath. Hello, Saturn, Neptune. Saturn rules the color black.
wow,
Neptune rules
yeah.
spirituality. So, yeah.
And if anything, it's almost just like, wow, he was just a man. He was just a guy, an entertainer, a father, things like that. And it kind of humanized him, in a lot of these
Yeah.
tributes to him.
And we're talking
Um,
about Uranus and Gemini. He's someone who did not do well in school. He had dyslexia and ADHD, I think, is what he has said. So we're talking about Sun and Leo, who had Uranus and Gemini things, but he was great at music. And so that's where he achieved a legacy Saturn with music Neptune. Yeah, and he's dead, Pluto. Hmm.
oh, wow. Yeah, but that's interesting, like just what you said, like when a planet is getting right in there with all the outer planets, that is huge. That is just
Hmm.
so much energy for that planet to have to deal with. Oh, and the other thing was, historically, Saturn through Aries has not been good for US presidents because that Saturn in Aries would be squaring, the United States sun, which is in Cancer, And this is, and it goes back to the Bill Clinton impeachment with Monica Lewinsky. Remember those innocent times where he was
We were
just
talking about
dragged through the mud?
blowjobs.
We're talking about, what was it, cigar or something, or a
And we're going to be talking about them again. But yeah, and also the United States, our IC is 1 degree of 1 degree of Aries. So
Aries.
that's where Saturn's stationed. So the president keeps trying to change okay. And so the MC is 1 degree of Libra. So you can think about the president is that
Hmm.
1 degree of Libra. And Saturn and Neptune are right there, wanting an uncovering
Mm. Our
of
roots.
yes, yes, and this
And
deception
what's
to be
hidden.
revealed, and it's not, and it's stationed. So it's going retrograde, but it's like this
The
intensity. Same
cover
thing
up.
with Mercury retrograde. Mercury stop talking about this. Yeah,
Yeah,
retrograde. No,
exactly.
we're going to go back over this all again. We are going. The story is not going away. I don't care if Congress goes on recess. It's not going away. So yeah, this Jeffrey
That
Epstein
is.
stuff is interesting. And the Cero series for the eclipse at
Ooh,
29 Virgo, there's themes of paperwork being an issue or files or documents. And
interesting.
it's the same series of the Pentagon Papers, which was a
Oh,
huge,
wow.
huge scandal back in the day about
Well,
yeah.
now the files, this Jeffrey Epstein files that once they were on Pam Bondi's desk, and then suddenly they don't exist. How does that work? You know? No,
Yeah.
that's not gonna fly.
Yeah,
But
no. Well,
also the Nixon, the Watergate scandal was also a Saturn and Aries transit
ah,
too. So that was a tough time for the president of the United States as well. So, each time it happens, I think before the one before, what is it, Eisenhower or something like that? Or yeah, I forget. I don't know too much before that, but I do recall how
well, Bill Clinton's
incredible those two,
being
Clinton and
impeached
Nixon.
and Nixon, those
Those
are
were
two
pretty bad.
biggies. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, the chickens coming home to roost is really interesting. And it's so interesting. I pulled Mike Johnson, who's the Speaker of the House. Like some
Yeah.
big stuff is going on. I think I,
I think it's the cover
it's,
up time for them now, probably as
yeah.
much as they can.
Yeah,
But go
yeah.
ahead, what were you going to
Because
say?
but Saturn's going back into Pisces to wrap things up, and it's going to station at 25 Pisces to go direct, and that will be trine the president's Venus-Saturn conjunction, and Venus rules his midheaven. Saturn can be, hardship or consequences and all of that kind of stuff. And for Mike Johnson, it's who's the Speaker of the House. Mm. When Uranus goes back into into Taurus, it'll stop on his at 29 degrees of Taurus. He has his Saturn, and Saturn was stationing when he was born. So
Wow.
yeah,
Oh, so Uranus on his Saturn? Is that what you're saying?
yes, yes,
Yeah, that usually isn't great for staying power, I
yeah.
would think. And I think that when we have Neptune back um into Pisces and Uranus back into Taurus, that could be, I wouldn't doubt if for a while with Neptune back into Pisces, MAGA starts to, like they don't want to break up. They don't want,
Uh-huh.
this is their home. They don't want, they may go back to a little more of the get that, toxic medicine back, to feel like,
Mm.
yeah, like I'm going to believe anything he says because why not? But I really feel like when Neptune goes back into Aries, it might just, it kind of like, when you going back to an old lover, and for a while it just might feel like, putting on your favorite jeans again or something like that. But then you realize, you know what? you can't smoke the same cigarette twice, right? And once it's been put
Mm.
out, as they say, any kind of metaphor for going back, it might not just give you that same, that same mystical mystery, all that stuff. It's kind of like the bloom is off the rose.
Ah, yeah. So
I think.
Hilda Puppies is saying they slept better than in the last couple of months last night. Well, maybe because Venus and the moon met in Gemini yesterday. I
Mm.
wonder if
Or
that.
yeah,
Oh,
and then let me see, and then last night, depending on where she is, moon in Cancer. But yeah, that
now it's
moon
in
Venus.
Cancer. Yeah.
Now it's in Cancer. Yeah, I don't know when it's only
Last night
5
it was in
degrees.
Gemini.
It
Yeah.
was in Gemini last night. Okay, so that definitely might have been the Venus. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to Leo season, even though it's Mercury retrograde in Leo, because at the very least we can laugh at all this craziness that's going, because it's kind of entertaining right now, at least, right? Don't you think, maybe?
Well, yeah, I'm. It's like gossipy, like the whole thing with the Coldplay
Yeah,
concert. That was the big Mercury retrograde event. And I feel like it's really symbolic about the archetypes. We are in the time of
it is.
Pluto in Aquarius. So the CEO of that company is a very Leonic type figure. And he is married, the head of a company that just raised like $1 billion or got, there's something about $1 billion involved. And he's out in public amongst tens of thousands of people, like touching on and clearly having an affair with the head of HR. I mean, it's such a violation of corporate practices. I mean, I used to work in corporate, and we would have to watch all these stupid things
Yeah,
every
Title
year
IX.
about ethics and how you're supposed to behave and da 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 da. And this just feels like the rules are for thee, not for me. And he got caught
Exactly.
dead to rights by a brilliant, dazzling light. Coldplay's Chris Martin, a celebrity, a big celebrity, the sun type figure. And so pap, I mean, I feel sorry for their families. I mean, I'm sure it's just devastating. But for the two people doing wrong in public with no shame whatsoever until they got caught, and then they started like trying to get out of the frame. Yeah, it
It
just
is
feels so
crazy.
symbolic of Pluto and Aquarius opposite Leo placements, bringing down, dimming the lights of the uber entitled.
Yeah, and that's so true that, like, if it were anybody else in the company, that
Maybe.
wasn't in the C-suite, they probably would have been out of a job, way before that. But other people had pointed out that it looked like they were in like some corporate box and they were canoodling in the corporate box around everybody else who probably, I mean, can you imagine how comfortable that would be? Like, oh my God, the gal from HR and the CEO. Like, I mean, that would make everybody else uncomfortable. I guess they thought, like you said, they thought they were the divine right of kings, right? Like that arrogance of, the Leo, the shadow of the Leo. And it's
Yeah,
like,
but
oh,
he's
okay.
the CEO is a Virgo, and so that
Oh,
South Node, karmic.
wow.
And that was
Yeah.
Mars coming to the South Node, very karmic.
For him.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, there's some things
Amazing.
that are more lighthearted. I mean, dealing with watching people lose their jobs at the beginning of the year, all
Mm.
those people from the government things. There's so many people who are struggling financially. So this does feel a little lighthearted to me, a little bit. I mean, the Epstein, what he did is so, so, so serious. But watching the president trying to change the conversation and nobody
Sort of
moving off
backpedal.
of it. And then the Wall Street Journal like brought out the
Yeah.
his doodles, the letter he wrote Jeffrey Epstein on the for his 50th
Right, exactly.
birthday. Talk about Chiron. Uh,
Rude.
Chiron returns are about 50. Yeah. And then the
Hmm.
president's like, I didn't do that, and suing the Wall Street Journal. They're running ads with a picture of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein's, one of those pictures
Wow.
together.
I
Yeah.
like
They're
the
taking
memes
him
that
out.
have them. I like
I
the
think
meme
they're
that
taking
had
him out.
him. I like the meme that had Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein together, and they were like, it's like they were the ones in the Coldplay box. You know, they were like
I
the
didn't see
lovers.
that.
Okay, you
I
got
gotta
okay. I'll just send it to you.
please send
But
it to me if you see come across it because that's
they were
perfect.
like, these Coldplay concerts are getting out of hand.
But I think this feels to me like it's all a masquerade in some ways, like because the North Node went into Pisces conjunct Neptune, and Elon started spitting out this stuff about Elon's the one that brought this back into the collective, where he said
Oh
that
yeah.
he dropped that Trump was on the list, and then Trump said, tell them there's no list on the day Uranus went into Gemini. Yeah,
Wow.
and I it feels a little bit. There's news about JD Vance went to go see Rupert Murdoch.
Yes, I
Like
heard
this is
that
starting to
too.
feel very, very coordinated. Like they're done with him and they're ready to take him back.
Well, my personal theory, and this does not have to do with astrology, but I wouldn't doubt it, that, Elon Musk, he can manipulate Twitter any which way, and he knows how to manipulate the algorithms so that it would change public opinion. And so that's changed public opinion of these MAGA. It's like, live by the sword, die by the sword. Like he was able to help throw all the support to Trump, because the Truth Social, I mean, come on, I'm sure it's not nearly as big as Twitter, right?
Yeah,
And now he can change the conversation on that as well. He's like, okay, Trump, you don't respect me? Watch what I can do with my powers of manipulation. And so there's that. And the other thing is, I think it was Nick Dagan Best. He really thought that because Trump's, let me see, what is it? Trump's Pluto is on JD Vance's sun. Is JD Vance a
yes,
Leo? Okay,
yes.
that
They
would be,
10 degrees of Leo.
that would, yeah. So Trump's is at 10 degrees Leo. So Trump would, it would be an exchange of power where
Ah,
Trump's, because he said that Pluto makes small things big and big things small. So he
yes.
has helped to, create JD Vance in the collective as a powerful figure. And it could end up biting him in the tush because it's very possible that JD could end up taking over, outshining Trump, and
Absolutely.
so because JD is in the pockets of Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. He's one of the
Yeah.
bros. So
Yes.
we shall see,
And
but
it's been the
not that I think
plan
that's any
for
better.
a while. Yeah, they needed Trump to for the cult to follow along. I called my podcast this week is called Sacrificial Lambs. So I think
What
there's
does
some
that
big.
mean? Oh, give me a little taste of that.
Yeah, well, we'll
What's it
see
about?
who the sacrificial lambs are. Who I thought it was going to be involved with Ghislaine Maxwell, like testifying and giving them, making a
Ooh.
deal to give a couple of names in order to get her freedom. But maybe it's something different. You know what I was thinking when I was getting ready? I started thinking about Scientology. Like, could this be a story? That could be something that maybe that'll distract from
Oh,
Epstein
why? Has
if
has
he starts,
Scientology come
huh?
back? Is there more stories on Scientology
There's
now?
nothing about Scientology,
Uh,
but there's going to be a new moon in Leo opposite Pluto and Aquarius, and I wonder. Let's just put that in the air. Does something come up about Scientology? Because Leo rules, celebrities, and a lot of celebrities are involved in that cult.
mm,
I may have
it's
just been a passing
definitely
thought.
Well, I think that Neptune and Aries, as I said, they're crusades, and everyone is finding a way to get into action rather than just, oh, I'm just going to focus on my healing and I'm going to watch Celeste's Moon Memo and just listen to her and, get healing. Now it's more like, I'm going to use what I got and I'm going to go to war with it, and from a spiritual, being guided or being pulled by what we think is spirit, like it may or may not be, but um and a lot of it is to do with spirituality and religion. And there's that whole new apostolic revolution that is behind Trump. That's those extreme Christian, they call themselves Christian, but they're really all about putting Trump at the very top of government and religion and the churches.
Well, his
um
Bible.
Oh yeah, and then
I
he's selling the
cannot believe
Bible.
people of the United States voted for someone who put a Bible out with his name in it and the
Oh my
Constitution in the
God.
Bible. I just
And
can't
did
even
you
believe this. Yeah.
also see just recently, I think I just heard about this yesterday or definitely this week, that they did away with I don't, is it the Supreme Court? They did away with the separation of, like churches can now um put their, you
They
know
can
they can
advocate
talk,
for
they can advocate for
politicians.
politicians and not lose their tax exempt status. Because before, if they did, they would lose their tax exempt status. Now they can all do it. Now, I think this is intended for those whatever Baptist churches and whoever supporting Trump, but it's
Absolutely.
across the board. So now it's like maybe we can start hearing from other denominations and other
Hmm.
candidates that they really believe in that might be doing good for the people.
And that was Uranus and Gemini too. I think that happened the day of or
Yeah.
the day after. And to me, one of Uranus and Gemini things is shredding. That's what Uranus can kind of like shredding the Constitution, a document. That's what he
Wow.
does on a daily basis. So yeah. Yeah. And I had worried, I had gotten a hit last year that freaked me out about like Mike Johnson being president for some reason. So
Oh,
I hope it
that
was
would be
just
scary.
just my fears bubbling to the surface and not any kind of prediction. Because he's a scary dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a very
Oh,
scary dude who is a true believer, like ready to like women get out of put your stuff down like they did in The Handmaid's Tale. You can't work anymore, go home, kind of stuff. So
wow.
mhm, yeah, but
Wow.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think
Yeah.
that this is all like we're um Colette Baron Reed had called it the birthing canal. That we're in this energy of it feels uncomfortable, but that we're gonna be born into some new world that I think will be more equitable, more positive, that we will get rid of some of this, we cannot go on and on with these people just they just have no. So Elon wants to go to Mars. How about we take care of Earth and rather than destroy
Exactly.
Earth, so people have to get off of it. You
Yeah,
know,
because all the billionaires were like, they don't want to spend their money on climate crisis stuff. They would rather have a new colony on Mars. Like, that's ridiculous. Human beings are not meant to be. I mean, as much as I love the planets and the astrology, it's from the point of view of Earth. They need to be out there and we need to be down here. And we need to
yeah, and it
clean
was
up our
something like
home.
he also did this thing about where he wanted to give money to anyone who could invent a way to create to do something scientific, like turn carbon dioxide into oxygen or something, or whatever. However he
Wow.
said it, someone wrote, "This is what trees do."
Yeah, I
So
saw
you're trying
that.
to create a scientific way to do what we already have.
Maybe create a
The
new rainforest, the one that we keep destroying.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
crazy.
I think we're getting to a point where human beings aren't going to take it take it much longer. I wonder, I'm like fascinated what Saturn and Neptune coming together will
Well,
be.
one of the things that's interesting on that point was in France, they're trying to make fast fashion illegal because
Oh.
that fashion like that Shein and some of those other
And
companies that sell,
Timu.
you can get like a whole outfit for like $2 or whatever, and it comes from China and stuff. But then there's these mounds and mounds of the excess
Waste.
clothing or of clothing waste that is not it's not biodegradable and stuff. So they're just like big mounds of trash out there, and it's terrible for the environment. And in France, one of the first moves they just did, like last week, was any influencer that promotes fast fashion is going to be prosecuted. So basically, I don't know
Mm.
how they do that. It's kind of weird though. That's very much a Uranus and Gemini thing. How are they going to get this influencer and this influencer? And how do they know where the influencer is? Are they French? Are they what? So I'm not sure even how they're going to police it or how they're going to enforce it. But they're at least trying to find ways to, you know, um, minimize or whatever this terrible blight, on our climate, and on our ecology and everything. So that's something to watch. So
Ah.
hopefully we'll have more of those. Then that's the kind of sort of innovative policy developments that we need that actually have a purpose, and keeping up with this fastness of social media and influencers and stuff like that. A lot of times they move so fast that the laws can't keep up with them. But I think
Mm.
that is one potential, is that when we see things that are, that have to be, captured or stopped or whatever, and the law has got to find a way to
Mhm.
keep up with, with the program.
Yeah, I think you're right. Oh my God. Yes. Well, this has been so great. I want to pull some cards. I have this deck that's
Oh, sure.
called the World Predictions deck from Trish
Ooh.
James. So why don't you come up to
Ooh.
a question about what we want some insight on related to our topic of the meltdown. And I had done this with Dabney, and there are definitely going to be more and more MAGA leaving the flock, I think.
Ooh, ooh, I love that.
And I think this eclipse season in September is going to be a September to remember. It's going to be so wild.
Let me see. I
If anyone, you can put in the comments too if you have
Oh
a.
yeah. Okay,
Hi,
yeah. Does anybody
Teresa.
have
Yeah, yeah.
what are you thinking? I don't know. I would love
What's
to
your
know. I've
okay.
heard good things about. I
Oh,
haven't
let
really
me
heard
about
stuff. Oh,
Ghislaine
go ahead.
Maxwell. Will she
Yes. Oh my
get
God,
a
that's a good one.
pardon, or what's going on with her? Will we hear from her? Like, what's that? Because I think she's going to get some kind of deal. I've been saying that for
I hope
weeks.
so. I hope she doesn't,
But she's an evil.
become a. I hope. Yeah, well, that's true. She's evil too, but I hope that she doesn't meet, Jeffrey Epstein's end.
Yeah, that would they. I don't think they could do that. That would be too
People
suspicious.
of, yeah,
But
people have
well, this
wisened
guy
up.
doesn't follow any rules. We'll
Right,
see.
exactly.
Huh.
Was she in danger? I want to know. Is she in danger? Will she
Hmm.
get out?
Well, this doesn't. I don't think. Huh. Well, I'll just tell you the
Oh, I can
cards I
see what the
pulled.
cards are. Yeah.
So I pulled Science Breakthrough. Science Breakthrough. So this makes me think
Mm.
about Uranus. And
Mm-hmm.
she's in her Uranus square. We have her actual
Oh,
birth
wow.
time. So Uranus and Gemini. She's a Gemini rising. So Uranus is in her
Wow.
12th house, and she has a 0 degree Uranus in Virgo. And then I got Shadow Ruler. So that makes me think
Mm.
about and this has uh and then public life burnout. So
Mm.
I don't know. And big news is at the bottom. Huh.
I,
I don't
I I don't know. It doesn't sound good for her, but it sounds
yeah.
like there's going to be some big revelations around her situation.
Hmm. Usually I when
Shadow
I can
ruler.
read them, but that's weird. Hmm. Who would shadow ruler be? Would that be Rupert Murdoch? Would that be uh,
Mm.
Peter Thiel? Mm. Hmm. Well, we'll see if
Well,
these
ruler,
show up.
I almost think Trump, maybe, because he's the
Ah,
ruler of the country and he is a
yeah.
shadow figure, and maybe there's you know, deals, backdoor deals kind of thing.
Ah.
And what was the
Or
last
maybe
one? You
she'll
were not.
talk about the who's behind a lot of what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. Ah, we'll see.
Mm.
We'll see. I won't speculate anymore, but I will just say, that's weird. Those are those cards. Hmm. Ah. Oh, will a billionaire ever pay for their crimes, or are they too powerful? No, I think with Pluto and Aquarius, people are going to be dealing
Not
with
going to stand
karma.
for it.
Yeah,
I think that it's interesting
it
because,
it's
it
going to be
takes a
there.
while.
It
I
takes
think
a
it's
long
yeah.
time.
I think we might not really see, at least until it gets to the mid degrees, right? That maybe when we start to really see some consequences, and hopefully by the end of the transit, which is 20-year transit, whatever, but we may be in a different world by then. I'm hoping that
Oh,
it
we
will
will be.
really be where billionaires are just not a concept we want
Yeah.
in society anymore,
Hmm.
or something of that nature.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we're at the top of the hour. This was so great
It was
talking to
so
you. I
fun.
loved it. It was so much fun. Tell
I need to
everybody
have you
how.
back
Oh,
again
well, we
soon.
didn't talk about the summit.
Oh
Tell
darn.
everybody
Okay, we
about
need to
this.
talk about the summit. Okay, so I'm hosting a summit. This is my fifth astrology summit I've hosted, and this one is going to be the best yet. Celeste, of course, is one of my speakers, presenters. We've got 20 astrologers over 3 days where you can hear some of the best that astrology has to offer. It's called Revolution Rising Astrology for the Zeitgeist. We're all going to be tapping into the zeitgeist of these times with these major outer planets making big moves into new signs. It's a free event, so definitely make sure you register today. Check out Celine's link in her bio, and you'll be supporting Celine. You'll be supporting Celeste. Sorry, you'll be
Mercury
supporting
retrograde.
astrologers. Uh, and we'd love to have you there. We have a great community. If you purchase the all access pass, you'll get into our special Kajabi community, which opens this Friday. And so you'll get to connect with our speakers and with our community around astrology. So we hope to see you at Revolution Rising.
Yeah,
All
so go
right,
to the
how's that?
link in my bio, and it'll be in the captions if you're watching this later, where you can sign up for free for the summit. Well, thank you, Christina. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
joining,
you.
and I'll make you a what do you call it, collaborator if you want to put this on your wall.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Please.
Yeah, this was so great.
Yes.
Thanks so much. Take good
Great. Thank
care.
you. Bye
Bye.
bye.